Just to kick this off, we've checked in previously, and it's tradition to start with a less serious topic. So to bring everyone to life, I think we've got to grips with who you all are, with the exception of Anish. Perhaps we could get a brief introduction. Can you just tell us the coolest thing you've seen this year in technology? Probably nothing to do with AI or Robo-Advice, but things that have excited you in 2016.
Me? Yeah. Should we start at the other end?
Right. I was looking at a presentation some time ago, and it was all looking at graphics and looking at photographic stuff. And these people had built some rather interesting analytic models. And they pulled up a photograph, satellite image of what looked like a building site in China. And then right beside it was another photograph, what looked to me like the same building site in China. And it transpired that they had taken the photograph about a week apart, and they were able to calculate from the variation in the shadow that was caused by the building to see how much taller the building was in the 1 week. And from that, they were able to calculate how much concrete, how much steel had actually been used in the construction and the rate at which it was actually being used. All right? So that same company also pulled up a photograph of Costco up near Watford, car park in Costco in Watford. And you can see all the cars. And they were actually able to estimate at that very moment in time approximately how many people were running through the tills and how much money was actually being taken by Costco in Watford at that very moment in time. That company has now been bought by a hedge fund who are massively out-trading the market. And I think that is super cool. That's taking analytics that we see on a daily basis and massively monetizing it. And that is the trick.
It's been existing for a while.
Sorry?
It's been existing for a while.
Yeah.
They won't actually reveal it to you. So
Yeah.
when I say cool, it means like that's not because somebody saw it. It's just go for it.
Yeah. Cool. Keep coming down.
Okay, the coolest thing I don't think I'm actually allowed to comment on something that's cool, according to my 12-year-old daughter, my 10-year-old daughter. But the thing that really fascinated me was, what do I really love? And that's alcohol and sport. Not at the same time, but that could be an interesting combination. And what also do I love? And that's what I do as a job in predictive analytics and machine learning. So I think the coolest thing, the coolest application of what I do was, there's a brewery that is using artificial intelligence and machine learning to brew the perfect beer for an individual based on individual feedback. So they can work out, using the data that's coming in, what makes up a perfect beer or a perfect lager. I think that's pretty cool. I wish I'd come up with that as an idea.
Nice.
The coolest thing I've seen this year, and I go back to my presentation, is the donotpay.co.uk with the parking tickets. The impact he's made is global. It's just one guy who's a student from North London, but he goes to Stanford, and he did it in his bedroom. And I think that illustrates that AI robotics is possible by the individual. And he also does a whole range of society-related AI, like to help homeless young people. And that just gives you the range and possibilities of these technologies.
In March this year, I was flying to New York, and I met technology that I feel like totally idiot. I asked my friend to meet with me, and we had to talk about potential cooperation, the business, etc. And because he was overlapped with the meeting, he asked his assistant to schedule the meeting. So his assistant contacted me through email and asked the best timing to meet with me. We choose different hours, different dates, then finalize, we schedule the time, I received the invitation, and it was super perfect. Then of course, you have the PAs, you have to make good relations with the PAs to get better relations with the person. So I tried to LinkedIn her and add her on the LinkedIn. But what I figured out, Amy Ingram is not on LinkedIn like a real person, but this is the AI part that just scheduled the meeting. Till that moment, I was really like, God damn it, if they know that my profile was there looking to add her, it was kind of Jesus. But still, this is so great that I didn't realize that I'm speaking with the computer, and it was so, customer friendly and personal friendly that I even like her and went to add her on LinkedIn. So yeah, that was pretty cool.
Nice.
I think I'm probably going to say this. It's not the most brilliant idea that actually happened, but the fact that you can actually have DAOs and you can really raise money, I thought that was really cool. They raised like 170 mil just using DAOs. You all know what DAO is, right?
Can you tell us what a DAO is, please?
Oh, it's a distributed autonomous organization. So you have a bunch of smart contracts that can do stuff. So you can raise some money, and contracts would actually make sure it actually goes to the right place. So it could probably be the future of how things could go, and that's the coolest thing I thought.
Did they stop trading?
It's a long story. I don't want to get into it.
Good question. Anyone who can keep Anish quiet is welcome back anytime. So thanks very much, everyone. I think that's brought to life a few of your interests. That's really useful. The first stop is we just want to anchor this. I've been involved in a lot of events like this. We go round and round in circles unless we manage to lock down a definition of what we're actually talking about. So we're just going to check in. We're going to go down the line this way. It'd be great to get a definition of AI and definition of Robo-Advice. We're going to build as we go down, and kind of Chinese whisper style. I wonder if we can maintain something by the end. It doesn't make Anish at the beginning want to leave. Because I think if we can lock this down, it would also address that mystery. Talking to some of you in the audience earlier, one of the key questions you came here to ask tonight was, a lot of things are called AI, a lot of things are called Robo-Advice. Lots of them are really different. Can we just try and understand the different levels that exist? So if we can go for it with the definitions.
I think I'll admit failure up front. Defining AI, pretty hard. So it's an area that's been around for a while. If you could actually get to a point where it's almost impossible to differentiate between what you describe as human intelligence from machine, then I think we crossed the point of singularity in that sense. So to me, I don't know. I think it's a continuum, no way to describe it. In terms of Robo-Advice, it starts from Excel sheets to everything else.
So
I'm going to ask you to expand on that. So is it possible you've got like levels? How many categories would you split it into?
Robo-Advice? Or
AI.
AI.
Are there distinct layers?
Well, in general, you classify people into two camps. The guys who think the crossover would happen, and the guys who don't think that will happen. I belong to the hardcore bunch.
Cool.
Thanks. If you look about AI, I think right now it's kind of like the cloud computing. I don't know in which year it was invented, 70s, 80s, 60s?
Or cloud.
Cloud computing, yes, as a cloud. Because cloud building a cloud infrastructure was, from my experience, was 80s, 70s, but now we use this word because it's cool and it's very good for marketing.
Sounds very fluffy.
Yeah, sounds very, 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 very good. And the same with AI. I hear many definitions of it, and everyone's loves to use it. This is a very good selling word, but I think there is no technology right now we can call the real AI, so the system understands that he's the system. And
I think that's the classification difference, AGI versus AI.
yeah, so now we try to use this word as many ways as possible, but still, even in the 80s, there was a cliffs built for astronauts to make their life easier in the space. There are different neural networks in the other system, but this is a real AI. I don't think so right now. And if you can go to the deeper levels, I can think that right now it's all the same, but it touch different parts. If there will be someone who can combine all of it and systems start thinking and trying to really figure out he understands this is a system and he's doing kind of role, this is the step. If you look about Robo-Advice, I think the Robo-Advice is used in a different, it is used in the wrong way. First of all, right now it's investment advice, mostly. Most robo-advisors are not focusing on setting up the goals, building a financial plan, provide insurance, include mortgages, and include trusts. This is the financial advice. And robo-advice. Advisors are people who not only sell investments, but do the financial planning and financial plans. That's why the robo-advisors currently, I think, should call themselves like investment advisors or automated investment advisors than robo-advisors, because it's all about investment. And I think that this is a huge opportunity for this market, not only being investment products, but also I think I see the future in that in trust services, when you can lower the cost of creating a trust, etc.
We're just going to go with definitions for now. We'll come back to what evidence is out there next.
I don't call it artificial intelligence, I call it deep learning, because there are 200, 300, 400 different techniques you can blend together. And I divide it between system optimization, how to make the system optimized, but the system is self-correcting, that the system gets feedback and corrects itself. And Robo-Advice, I think, is a process where you have a decision, you get a more effective decision tree.
So, as I said earlier, I think there's a huge amount of terminology that gets utilised in this area, but I think organisations spend too much time thinking about the definition rather than what they're trying to actually deliver. And at the end of the day, what we're trying to do is automate as much of the decision process as possible, of which the mechanism that we're doing that is through methods of deep learning, methods of artificial intelligence, and using data to then provide that. And I think where we've really moved on is then how do we automate that process of the system learning. At the moment, if we look at a financial organisation, every time you swipe your credit card, a decision is being made within real time whether or not that's a fraudulent activity or not. There's a form of intelligence being built into that particular system. But the process of building in that intelligence takes potentially months and years to have a system that will automate that fraudulent activity detection. Where I see artificial intelligence is actually making the process of building that decision making in a matter of days or weeks rather than years, but still with the same governance that is needed.
Hi. I always feel slightly guilty talking about AI when I've got somebody called Turing over my left-hand shoulder. So this room here is called the Turing room, so I feel slightly guilty. From me, again, looking at AI, it's evolved from your rudimentary, basic, expert systems, which were fundamentally rules-based, which a lot of people are now peddling as being AI or advisory systems. Very much rules-based, sets of criteria, etc., to satisfy certain criteria to ultimately end you up in a basket of 6 particular outcomes. What is ultimately required is the ability to consume larger levels of potentially extraneous pieces of information, to blend those together to satisfy what is not necessarily a predetermined outcome. And that's the fundamental problem with AI, is to actually be able to head towards a non-predetermined outcome and to be able to understand how did you get there. So it's one thing understanding where you're potentially going to get to, but to be able to interrogate it, to understand how did you get there and why did you get there. And that's the fundamental thing, in my opinion, around real, true machine learning, machine intelligence. Being able to interrogate the outcome to actually understand the journey by which you got there.
All right, thanks very much. So I was expecting more from that session. I don't know how you're on the audience. I thought we might get to a sentence or an elevator pitch on there are 3 stages. I've always thought there are 3 stages, one of which is assisted decision making. It's pretty manual. It's like supercharged Excel. Then you've got a level of machine learning that's kind of set up once and it's going to steer itself along. and then you've got something that's continually improving itself in real time. That's how I think of it. Is that
Completely wrong? Yeah, I'm not asking you.
Is it possible to consider there are 3 levels in which, because I think a lot of us here were thinking we could really do with some AI, more AI in our business, that sounds great. How do we make sure we're not getting bullshitted? Like we're buying from second-hand car salesman stuff that we don't fully understand. Is this like level 1, 2, or 3? I think would be a really useful understanding for people who are trying to engage more in their space. So is it possible to say there are 3 levels which we can categorize to help us not get led astray?
Takers?
I think the point I would make that this is research, data science. There's no predetermined outcome. You can't categorize it because you've got to invent it.
Uh-huh. Cool.
The idea of 3 categories got an awesome frown off Vincent there at the end that I can't resist following up on. Would you care to talk us through the frown?
I think that the only, you heard me saying earlier there is no predetermined outcome. There is one, in that you must be compliant. Okay, so if we look at that, that's a pretty much digital Boolean, whatever term you want to use. So you have to be able to operate within a certain set of rules. However, the journey to that must incorporate the desired outcome of the individual with whom you're interacting. And humans have got one fundamental issue is we don't particularly like rules. We don't like being led to something that we believe is a predetermined outcome. Otherwise, you're not adding anything to my decision-making process. So this is where I have a problem with the 3 levels. I think it depends on who you're talking to and what you're trying to achieve, right? If you're saying, I want to use AI across the 3 levels of dealing with a patient, I've got my initial analysis, etc., potential outcome, and then the medication that I'm going to apply. So I can possibly break that into 3 steps, but again, I know where I want to get to. So I think that you need to be, it's a context-sensitive subject, depending on what you're actually trying to analyze and where you're trying to get to.
Okay, cool. Thanks very much. So at this point, we were going to look at evidence that's out there. Perhaps, can you bring to life some real case studies that you think are interesting for people here? You might want to follow up on what case studies are out there, what's an interesting story to follow. Perhaps if each of you could just drop in a case study you're familiar with, that'd be really useful.
I can take you through one that I did with a fintech. We had a very interesting problem where somebody had built phenomenal real-time visualization of fast-moving data. I'm talking about millisecond level data. And they showed it to a trader, and he said, that's really, really good, but completely and utterly useless. I said, why? Why is it useless? He said, because you're not telling me something that's going to happen. You're telling me something that's just happened, so that's of no use to me. You may as well be 2 weeks late. So they came to us, and we have the ability to build real-time machine learning algorithms that can actually predict. And I worked with somebody in John's team, and the typical view within SaaS is we tend to look at like a 1 week forward or a month forward. And when I sat down with George, and he said, how much data have you got? I said, well, I've got about 6 days of data, but I've got tick level data down to the millisecond. And he said, how far out do you want to predict? I said, if you can give me 10 or 20 seconds, I'd be over the moon. And you could almost hear the hamster fall off the wheel. He just could not rationalize this concept of being able to predict 10 to 15 seconds in advance. He thought that, what am I talking about? I'm on drugs. So we spent a huge amount of time, and we were running it, and we had to go through a number of iterations. And I was in a meeting with a client, and he knocked on the door rather sheepishly and called me out. And he said, Vince, he said, if I could tell you of a potential liquidity collapse in an equity about 20 seconds in advance with about 75% confidence, how good would that be? And I had hairs that rose in the back of my neck. And that was when I realized how important it is to be able to understand the relevance of what the data science techniques are to the problem you're trying to solve. Because 20 seconds to a trader or an algorithm is an eternity. You can make and lose a hideous amount of money in that amount of time. So I think that kind of for me that was an incredible case study in using phenomenal techniques, but with the innocence of somebody that didn't understand the relevance. Right? So that's just that's for me is a phenomenal story.
Forgive me for interrupting, but with a liquidity crisis would mean the spread would widen so significantly the trader can't actually take advantage.
Well, actually, what we did, we analyzed a particular equity over a 6-day period. We were looking for specifically butterflies, so collapse and bid-offer spread within the 13 levels of the order book. All right. We found thousands of these things on a daily basis, and we had to fine-tune the model so that it actually only looked for liquidity collapses that lasted more than 2 seconds. There were thousands of these things that were lasting 1/100th of a second or 1/10th of a second. It was total. So I'm quite happy for you to feel free to have a good look. So we actually built a model that only specifically looked for liquidity collapses that were longer than 2 seconds. Right? And that was a 20-second, and that became a ping out to an algo. Because it was able to identify collapses in liquidity on Chi-X versus BATS. So then you're actually able to arb off exchanges. All right?
Cool. So hold on a sec. We've got quite a few questions coming in. Like there's lots of you with hands up. So hold on a sec. We'll start with the fellow who was first.
Yeah. So during the whole evening, I've heard about how AI can improve investments, can improve our daily life basis and our jobs, and how it makes our life and our work easier. But my question is about the other side. Like, can it actually, do you think as expert, because I'm not an expert and I'm just here to hear you talking, that AI can actually be subjected to a hack and not improve what we are actually doing, but decrease the outcome of your job, your work, and your daily life?
Okay, so my PhD was in cryptanalysis. I have a lot of interest in ethics of AI, so I have a project called OpenEd, that's an ethical compiler. So I'm really interested in the problem that you are kind of alluding to. Yes is the answer, short answer. It's not an easy yes, because one of the things I wanted to kind of mention was a lot of the techniques that we use, especially deep learning, we don't have a real good way of understanding. There's a very recent paper that is out, which kind of indicates it's possible to actually black box an algorithm and kind of understand it, but we still are far away from understanding. So if you have a bunch of neural networks and you get it trained, and when you run it, you have absolutely no clue. I mean, you have some idea, there are architectures being proposed, you have some idea, but if it's really being hacked in that sense, it's very hard to figure that one out. There's a huge risk.
Anyone else?
The case study I'll sort of refer to is Microsoft Taybot. Within, they released it, and within, I think 8 hours, it turned into a teenage female Nazi. They then took it away, and 3 days later, or 4 days later, they released it again. And within 2 hours, it turned into a female teenage Nazi. In AI and deep learning systems, subunit optimization, that is one of the problems of the system. And I think in the Microsoft case, hackers got wind of it and pegged the system with the food for that to happen. So it's a real concern.
Excellent. So we've got
Yes,
one
I
here.
wanted to go back to the 20-second bit of a spread thing. So how did you manage to begin with to collect the millisecond data? Because wherever I look, I can't find the millisecond data. I can only find the minute data on things.
We actually work with a real-time data provider.
Right. So, for example,
Thomson Reuters.
All right. Next one.
Go for it.
Perhaps just going back slightly, a slightly broader question with regards to what AI is. The debate around consciousness, with the vast experience in front of me, has anyone yet to see a machine that's demonstrated conscious decision making rather than responding to certain inputs or outputs or following?
So first off, can you define consciousness for me, please? So my interest is very much at that edge. Okay, I work with a lot of people. I haven't seen anybody turn up. So my first degree is in medicine. I have 2 degrees in mathematics. Now I'm a nutcase. I'm a complete nutcase. I go around the globe. Work with all the people. So any lab you say, I probably have worked with them. I haven't seen. I can tell you now. I haven't seen a single person who come up to me and said, "This is consciousness." So I spent time in big places like Stanford and MIT. No, I haven't seen anybody who could clearly define what that means. So show me that, and then we can have the conversation.
Well, isn't the point of AI to mimic human thought?
AGI is the definition of actually doing something similar. Essentially, you give it a problem, you learn, and you apply in different places. That's what, more or less loosely speaking, AGI means. But this definition of, I don't know what that is, is pretty hard. Nobody's able to nail it. So I don't know.
We've gone beyond microphone. Wow. Anyone else want to pick up on that, please? You should read Homo Deus by the guy who wrote *Sapiens*. Someone tell me Noah Yuval Harari. I've almost finished Homo Deus. You'd love it. It's all about actually how conscious are we to begin with. Kind of resets the goalposts a bit, or brings them closer. Back at the ranch. I'm interested about the impact AI and Robo-Advice is likely to have. And what I think would be useful to us is to try and think how the impact is going to be different for different types of people and organizations. So what do you think the biggest cleavage is going to be from AI? Is it between the old and the new, or the big and the small, the state and the private sector? I wonder if you think this is going to come along and cause that. Where's it going to be most divisive, do you think, between it's going to create a kind of us and them?
We already have an us and them.
Yeah, the people who have
Right?
access to
Just look around you. You have an entire generation here who have a completely different digital view, right? So from my perspective, looking at working with the banks, their biggest concern is the way in which they engage with a customer that really doesn't want to engage with them. And this is why fintechs exist. So you are a situation is emerging where you're getting democratization of decisions. The speed with which that information is moving is radically different. You no longer have a market edge in terms of the knowledge that you find on the golf course. Information moves so much faster than that, and people have access to that. And I think that increasingly that information and the ability to analyze, assimilate, and make decisions from it is going to be democratized and become ubiquitous. So
So
the
bring
banks are
people
not
together, not divide.
Yeah, I think it's going to bring people together in terms of their ability to actually self-serve. The banks are not going to be able to engage that. The banks are becoming increasingly utility-based vehicles that are supporting very much the drudgery element of what happens in banking.
And you think AI and Robo-Advice will accelerate this?
Absolutely.
Okay.
It's just my
Cool. Do you want to
Yes,
pick up, Jack? We haven't had for a bit.
If you talk about AI and Robo-Advice, there is always the question about regulations and who's going to be responsible for the actions taken by the AI systems. It's kind of like a self-driving cars. This is a huge issue. So we can't tell right now about AI in Robo-Advice because we can't provide AI advice based on current regulations. It means that who's going to take responsibility for figure out what kind of questions are going to ask you and what kind of assets are going to screen you. It's not possible to allow a computer to do that. So current AI in Robo-Advice is focused on customer experience rather than advice, because I think it's from regulation part is too risky, first of all, and the second thing is you always have to prove regulators how you get from the point A to B. if you allow AI to do that in the way that you can control fully, it's not going to work.
I think it will look also with organisations, it will actually help people internally make the right decision in a quicker way. So rather than spending days trying to find a piece of information, they can have artificial intelligence to automatically surface that bit of information that they're after. So SAS has been around, as I said, 40 years, generating reports about data. But the way that a individual within a bank wants to interact with that particular data isn't necessarily to go and find the particular report that has got that information in it. They just want to say, I want to know how many products sold in the last week. They have no idea where the report that is and what data is used to drive that particular report. They just want to know the answer. So I think AI really comes in to enhance the decision making of people internally into organisations.
Great, thanks. Ian, I wonder if we can continue that question, but can it be as crude as it's good for some people and it's going to be threatening for others? Is it possible to respond along good for them, bad for them?
That's my example. Trawling through all the different kinds of bots and the comments around them, I'd come to the conclusion that the labour needed for call centres would go down by 50%, and consumers prefer, once they understand dealing with an AI bot, consumers prefer it because they don't have to stay on the phone for half an hour before you get through to a human. The way I look at the world, in 1914 in London, there were probably 1.5 million people involved in looking after horses in this town. By 1936, 37, there were about 100,000. So the economic and transition can occur relatively seamlessly, but it is going to be painful.
That's great, thanks. I think at this point, if we can get some questions from the audience, and we'd love to go to people we perhaps haven't heard from previously, first of all. So yeah, if you'd like to. Yeah.
Sorry. Going back to your point about how we're just going to start asking questions and then finding specific bits of information. Do you not think that will dumb us down? We've become so reliant on certain pieces of technology that we can't necessarily do basic things. For example, some of my friends don't know how to physically use a paper map. So when their phone goes down or you go into a place with no signal.
Yeah. So it's dumbed down the process in the fact that you can't go through the manual approach to get to the answer that you traditionally could do. But I think what it has done is it will allow you to make more decisions faster. And you can start to, the phrase that I use is fail fast, in terms of you can ask a question, get an answer that you weren't expecting, which then triggers another question that you can then ask. Rather than work out what your question is and then spend a week trying to get to your answer, find that the question that you asked was actually not the right question, but now the world's moved on another week, and actually you haven't got the information that you wanted. So there is an element that it would dumb down the process of getting the information, but I don't think it would dumb down the asking of the question and more intelligent questions.
Is it okay if I add something? So the way I would describe it is the bottleneck is now your senses, your ability to read, your ability to hear, right? If you had a real interface to your brain, definitely the difference between what the ability of your brain versus the addition you have will be not feeling different for you as a human. So whether you as a human will be able to differentiate whether you have extra power or not will be impossible to detect in that sense. Does that make sense?
As in,
if you're being enhanced, you won't be able to recognize the difference.
as in you won't notice.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and I think the
Is
example
that not a concern? Would you not be concerned about that?
but I think
That's a secondary problem.
the other example that I've got is the driving of a car. In terms of, if you look back 50 years ago, how did you have to drive a car? How did you switch the engine on? How did you change gear? How did you reverse the car? How did you go forward in it? We've now got sensors with cars that make that process a lot easier, which allows the driving of a car to be open to more people, because we can automate more of the process. But we can spend less time actually thinking about how we drive the car to get to A to B, but focus more on where do we want to go, rather than thinking of how do we actually get there.
Sorry.
Cool.
Just
We're
jump
gonna
in.
keep going. Yeah.
No, just on the same idea, just to augment it. I think the question comes in terms of the complexity you're describing, because driving a car, face it, it's not very complex. If you're talking about the financial advice you're giving with some of these ideas discussed, you're discussing the welfare, the actual net worth of people. If the process comes so complex that it's actually an algorithm that somebody understood in 2012 or 2020, 2050, you may not have it. Intergeneration know-how may not be maintained. I think that's where the question is coming from, and is that a fear?
Can I just check you all heard that at the back? Not really, no. Cool. So it's really useful when people ask a question, we try and like speak it back to make sure everyone's heard it. I got the gist of that, which is a car's one thing, but financial products are much more complicated. Are the same principles going to apply? Is that your question?
Well, intergeneration know-how arguably will not be capped if the complexity of wealth management goes beyond what we understand today. Right? I mean, how you make decisions in wealth management, you can learn that in 12 years, more or less. I mean, you talk to people at UBS, they'll be about the number. If that gets more complex, through coming up with algorithms, you test the theory quickly. Give it 50 years, it is so complex that a kid sitting in university may not be able to learn it, and he will not need to learn it. But there goes your question on review of the process. You don't need to review it, you don't review it, and then you just lose control.
Okay, the first question is, there are okay, let me rephrase this here. So if you take the set of all humans, we have a distribution of intellect, right? Some people can't do some things, that's obvious. Does everybody need to do everything is a key question. Similarly, does humans really have to do it?
Okay, we got time for a couple more questions. Here we go. I'm going to try and bring the mic to you to make sure everyone can stay along with it.
I agree with the gentleman and the lady over there, because I think there's a differentiation between the process of to get to something and the technology that's used to actually get to an answer. I think the technology is good because you get to an answer quicker, and the strides in technology is good as well, but then I think we'll lose the knowledge around the process and to be able to actually add and get visibility on actually how the answer is achieved. And if we lose that visibility, then we don't actually know how the answer has been achieved, and we do lose control. So that's my thoughts.
Okay, sounded like more of a comment than a question, but you'd like a response.
Yes. So what I understand is that you think that if the process is fully automated and there is no human behind that, it's going to be difficult in the future to understand how we're getting from point A to B in advice, in financial advice. Understand that if we talk about wealth management, when there's a lot of different levels of tax, of asset management stuff, of insurances, and if you do everything automatically, yes, in the future it's going to be very, very complicated. But if you look from the customer perspective, it's different, because right now, it doesn't matter for me, I'm talking to a financial advisor or a computer, I'm still not getting knowledge. From this point of view, the person or the interface provide me advice. I'm looking for advice, so I'm going to be advised. But the problem is going to be that the users, so like the financial advisors, become more than like tech guides or IT people who are going to run those systems. And this could be something very, very interesting in the future.
Can I just add to the question?
Sure. I'm afraid we're getting really short on time. There's one more question over here. That's going to be our final one. And panelists, I think as a final parting shot after that, I was going to leave with one question, which is kind of an epitaph for each of you. If you were in this position and you had a panel of experts in this area, I wonder what question you would put to them. So are there questions yourself you think are the burning questions in this area that you yourselves would like to see answered. So if you have thoughts along those lines, or anything you think is the one message that you think's the most important around this, we'll do that as a final round. And for now, the final question.
I'm more interested about the wealth management side. Today, lots of people are saying that fund manager or financial advisor doesn't give appropriate advice or the return of fund management. Fund managers, lots of fund managers, very low. So lots of people just do DIY investment. So use different tools to help them to make the investment decision. So why do we still need these financial advisor and because they don't do proper jobs? And what do you see about, because there are lots of regulations, restrict what they can advise, and bond returns are very low at the moment. So people turn to alternative investment. So what do you see about this trend, and these two will help people to make a decision?
Okay, can I give it a go? I'll be the controversial guy. Give it a wait. Well, humans in general have biases, and human decision bias is a huge problem. So wealth advice, there is a lot, including healthcare advice, wealth advice. So if you look at Vinod Khosla's presentation about humans and healthcare advice, he calls it 80% doctor included. You could pretty much see how bad things are. Okay, I'm a doctor. I put my hand up, and I can tell you it's scary. I would really think really hard before I go to one. Wealth advice, probably it's the same boat. It's like if you have a machine learning algorithm, you train it well enough, and you compare, do a double-blind test, you'd be pretty sure that the machine learning, decent machine learning algorithm will do a better job than a human.
Just quickly, if you hire a lawyer and you pay him £2,000 per hour, he can't guarantee you what's going to happen in court, because there is always a judge who's going to decide. And what he guarantees you is how he's going to get you to the court, and how successfully he's going to do to convince the court that you have a right. The same with the market. The market is a kind of judge. So the role of the financial advisor is not to beat the market to get to promise you that you're going to get revenue or income from the assets that you're going to, they can project it. It's that he do everything that's possible to reach your goals, which if you decide to, earn 50% per year, is not going to be possible at all.
Do you see a trend, people going to DIY investment rather than going to financial advice?
Can you repeat the question?
Yeah, but okay, people use tools every time, but from the perspective, there are different kind of investors looking for different things. Robo-Advice right now is very simple. So it's simple tools that allows you to select the right portfolio based on the risk profile, mostly to meet the regulations. It's not about advice. It's about selecting asset matching with the risk profile done. And this is kind of tool, just like you said, it's a kind of screening tool that allows you to select the portfolios and make things happen online. But people who go to financial advisors, they go in there because they trust them, and they have no idea even that any kind of other tools exist. This is like, being honest, you can defend yourself in the court very easily. You can study law and you can do that by yourself. But if every person who wants to invest are going to do the same, are going to look how to use the tools, how they can help them. No, they're looking for professionals who are going to provide these answers. And this is the point here, I guess.
I think there's also a perception with building intelligent machines that they're going to make 100% accurate decisions. And as soon as we then look back and go, well, the machine hasn't made the right decision, therefore we can't trust the machine. Well, how many decisions does a human make that are 100% accurate? What we're trying to do with the whole of this process is make the decisions more accurate than a human would. And can we actually use a machine to automate some of that process and then help make more accurate decisions with some further human intervention? So you would still have expert advice, but you've automated some of that standard process and standard decision making.
Okay, that's great. Sounds like we've started the final round. just final thoughts at this point. So it might be a question that you yourselves want to see answered, or a final thought that you just think, you know, if there's one thing I want you to remember that I've said tonight. A lot of really interesting things that we said, but if there's one thing you want to stand out, or one question you want to leave us with, we'll just finish off with a final quick comment from each of you, and then there will be time afterwards to pick each other's brains on this.
I think this is a fantastic opportunity for people to share ideas, share knowledge. I think that we're increasingly getting better at how we do things. From my perspective, we're encountering new techniques, new ideas, new disciplines. We're investing massively. And yet, it only becomes relevant when you actually apply. Conversely, and rather strange, perversely sorry, when you actually start to apply the knowledge that the people have of the industry. So, as John was saying, all of the intelligence in the world that you embody within a computer is irrelevant until you actually add that human degree of context. Right? So that's my little nugget.
Cool. Thanks, Vincent.
I think with me, it's looking at whether it be your customers or you as an individual, what part of a decision-making process do you feel that is a waste of your time? And what else could you then do if you freed up that time? And my thought is, we'll concentrate on the things that can be automated to allow you to do stuff that's more interesting and more valuable to either your organisations or your customers.
So if I was sitting in the audience, I'd have two questions or 2 points. A, how can I become a data scientist or get the knowledge of data science so I can use all this stuff? And B, how can I figure out a startup in the governance area? Because that's going to be one of the really growth areas in this whole field.
I think the interesting part in AI and automated solutions in financial services is that you know how many investment funds right now totally based on algorithms. There are plenty of them, and the number is still rising. So imagine that the robo-advisors are starting not using ETFs, but using the algorithmic traded funds based on the algorithms. And all advice is provided through also the algorithms. So where is the level of automation in the market that lead us to, okay, every fund is going to be traded automatically, and every advice will be provided automatically, so what the hell people are going to get? Nobody's know that. And this is interesting. So what kind of part of the market we leave to humans? Because I think we still think about it, and we still leave some part for that.
Given its financial markets, and we had a meltdown in 2008, give or take, I'd be very keen to understand, can we make machines or AI understand the ethics?
On that bombshell. Wow. So that's been quite intense, and hopefully it satisfied a few of your questions out there. I'd like to thank a few people. I'd like to thank SAS for helping us to make tonight happen. And also, can we have a massive round of applause, Z West, who's actually pulled the whole thing together. We are FinTech, FinTech for good. Z, phenomenal effort to get all these people here. Sold out, job done, people happy. Yeah, I think it's been a really good session, so thank you very much. And finally, just a thank you to everyone in the audience for putting up with our crappy microphones and our truculent behavior. And yeah, come back and see us. SAS are going to have something to follow up on this. I think take some of these conversations further and apply more practically. So keep an eye out for that one. Of course, hashtag #WeAreFinTech if you've got thoughts. You can share them there and slag off the microphones on there like I'm going to. That's it, folks. Do stick around.